Bitcoin is currently hovering around $69,000. You'll see a lot of people talk about how this is the confirmed bear market bottom and we're just going to move higher from here. There's also another camp that seems to think that Bitcoin will be going all the way down to $20,000. In today's video, I'll be discussing what I think could be next in this market. Hint, hint, it's somewhere in between because I do think that we can see some relief, but I also don't think that the bear market low is in. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. It's a new week. What is Bitcoin telling us here? You can see that we're hovering around $69,000. This morning, we dropped all the way down to the low 68K zone. And if we are to zoom out here, you can see that we are trying to make the case for another higher low before potential continuation to the upside. Now, if you've been following me, you know I've been shorting Bitcoin from much higher, right around $97,000. And I will continue to maintain this position because even on a relief rally, I find it hard to believe that Bitcoin will make it all the way up there. I have paid myself first, as I always say, secured some profits, keeping the rest of this position with my stop loss at break even. Right now, though, what you want to look for a potential longing opportunity, if this is something that interests you, is Bitcoin ideally sweeping these lows around $67,400. Now, if Bitcoin is to continue higher from here, I actually do think that altcoins will be getting some more relief and can outperform Bitcoin. The reason I say this, we just got a weekly candle close below the bull market support band. Now, this is pretty pivotal for Bitcoin dominance, coming from the guy that has been very bearish on altcoins. So if Bitcoin is to get relief, I do think that we can make a case for altcoins to also get some relief. That being said, I am still longing Bitcoin dominance on Bluffin. Reminder, if you want to trade on Bluffin, you do have the second link in my description down below, and this also gives you access to all of my own trades that I am taking in this market. In my Telegram group, using the first link in my description down below, if you DM me the keyword 2026, I'd be more than happy to onboard you into my group. A reminder though, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy on the internet sharing all of his own personal trade setups and of course his overall market analysis. So right now, Bitcoin is just sitting at around $69,000, dropping below, going above, and we did get a relief rally all the way up to around $72,000 after hitting those 59K lows. Only time will tell what will happen next, but if history is any indicator, we know that these relief rallies can actually continue. And I'd just like to show you what I'm talking about. So first and foremost, if we go to the previous cycle, you can see that Bitcoin did have a pretty significant correction after creating that high all the way down into around February, only to go ahead and get a nice relief rally up until the end of March, April. Then we ended up moving much lower. If you watched my previous videos, this will probably ring a bell. The exact same thing happened in the cycle before then. Bitcoin had a significant correction from the bull market top, and then we managed to bottom out almost perfectly to the same time we bottomed out this cycle. You'll see that the massive wick to the downside coincides with the first week of February, which is exactly what we saw this February, only for Bitcoin to get nearly a 100% pump. So I think it's going to be somewhere between this. I actually gave an update in my Telegram community this morning saying that I wouldn't be expecting a massive relief rally simply because this time around Bitcoin did not get that massive euphoric phase. Usually when there's euphoria in the market, we can have an even more significant dump, but this is met with a more significant bounce. Because this wasn't that significant of a dump, and I know some of you might be saying, are you kidding me? We dropped literally over 50% from the highs. But trust me, I have been here cycle after cycle after cycle. This is a drop for ants. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Ultimately, I do think Bitcoin will be going lower in this bear market. But what I want to get out here is that the steepness of this most recent drop is actually far less than the previous cycles. So because of this, I don't think the bounce will be as significant as the previous cycles. So let's assume the bounce can continue, but it's just a little bit less significant. Well, taking a look at the wick lows all the way up to where Bitcoin made it, that was already over a 20% bounce. I actually think that this can extend all the way up until around $80,000. Now, can we get a couple of retraces in the short term here for some potential longing opportunities? I think that that's the case. And again, if this is to happen, well, Bitcoin will likely underperform altcoins if Bitcoin dominance is to continue its current trajectory. The reason I say this is because, again, we dropped below the bull market support band, and this is ultimately what you want to see for altcoins to outperform Bitcoin. A reminder, I am not macro bullish on altcoins, but I do think there will be some phenomenal opportunities in this bear market. So let's take a look at the CME chart because we do have some gaps that we need to fill. Bitcoin is currently at around $69,000, and you can see that there is a pretty big gap between around $79,000 up to $84,000. So this could be an area of interest for a new shorting opportunity, a swing shorting opportunity in this market if history is to repeat. Perhaps we can go ahead, sweep a little bit lower, then get a bounce, and Bitcoin will likely find some kind of rejection in this zone, ultimately bleeding much lower. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, you know that my bear market target for Bitcoin is sub this wick over here, sub $50,000. But as soon as we start dropping below 60K once more, which I do think is likely, I will be accumulating some spot Bitcoin. For now, I'm happy to remain patient and just trade the market that's right in front of me as we ideally get a little bit more of a relief rally before potentially moving lower. Now, let's cover the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. Earlier this morning, we saw that a lot of longs started closing their positions, and right now you can see that on the one-day time frame, there's officially more cumulative short liquidation leverage in the market, thus creating more fuel to the upside if Bitcoin is to get some of that relief. Then we also have the fact that on the 7-day time frame, it paints a pretty similar picture, and if we really do zoom out on the 1-year time frame, it's the exact same thing that I've been talking about over the past couple weeks. There are way more shorts in this market, and what this means is if we do get a little bit more relief, we can squeeze out a lot of these shorts, ideally up until the mid 80K zone. Let's see how the price action develops. As always, you need to understand that I am still holding on to my macro swing short. Some of you might be saying, well, that's bullshit because then you'll say that you weren't wrong. Well, that's the point. I entered a swing short at around $97,000 when everyone was euphoric. And here I am showing this trade basically every single day on the channel. And another quick reminder, if you want access to all of my own personal trades, how am I navigating this market on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis, you do have the first link in my description down below. Click this link up here, DM me the keyword 2026, and we'd be happy to onboard you into my free group. Next thing, I want you to understand that the stock market is going to be crucial for how Bitcoin performs. We know that 13 out of 19 years, midterm years that is, we see over 10% drawdown in the stock market. Remember, we discussed the fact that if the stock market does drop more than it already did, which was literally a drop for ants around 3%, Bitcoin can get that much larger move to the downside. Now, ideally, for Bitcoin's case of a more significant relief rally, we see stocks continuing to hold above its bull market support band. Then we can get another little bounce, ideally another all-time high. But I do think that eventually in this midterm year, stocks will be dropping a little bit further. We haven't had less than a 5% drawdown since 1950. So this is something that you definitely need to consider. History repeats. Bitcoin will be making new lows. I found this post on Twitter. I cross-verified it. Yes, it is indeed true. Now, a huge discussion point in the industry has been CZ and them selling billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, or supposedly. He claims that Binance is not selling any Bitcoin and it's just Binance users, but ultimately they came out with this fund where they were going to buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. But as I said, it doesn't really help if they're selling tens of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. At this point in time, they bought another 4,000 Bitcoins worth around 300 million, bringing its total purchase of around 10,455 Bitcoins worth over $700 million. So they're pretty close to buying that 1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now we'll have to see if the market can get some more upside because of this, but a lot of people are absolutely furious with CZ making these kinds of memes. Something else you want to consider here is that, again, this morning before I recorded my video, BlackRock deposited another 2,268 Bitcoins and around 45,000 Ethereum to Coinbase Prime, presumably once more for some selling. And other developments would include that China ordered banks to reduce their US Treasury holdings, and we have the fact that $3.5 trillion Goldman Sachs warns that the market sell-off is not over yet. And I would tend to agree with this. The real question is, can we peak a little bit higher for stocks? Can Bitcoin inch a little bit higher, ideally towards that 80K zone, provide some relief across the market, and then roll over? Or are we just going to be rolling over immediately? Either way, I am positioned. And Michael Saylor, of course, came out hinting at buying more Bitcoin. He does this every week, but the annoying thing about this is that he usually comes out, buys around $100 million worth of Bitcoin at a high price like 70K after the market has already nuked below $60,000. And then if Bitcoin is to pump more, say 80, 85K, then he'll come out saying that he bought billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Ultimately, we cover this on the channel, but unless Bitcoin stays at a price of like $8,000 for a few years, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are totally fine. They have survived bear markets before, but let's see how this develops. Some more FUD in the market as per usual. Right now, Bitcoin is hovering around $69,000. I'm in my Bitcoin short. I've started longing hype, but it is a relatively small position, all things considered, and I'll keep you updated as the market develops. We want to see if we can get some more buying from the ETFs, and on Friday, we got around 300 million covered in my last video, but the Coinbase premium really needs to follow here. I do not want to see another sharp sell-off. Ultimately, that would just mean that Bitcoin wants to go ahead and move lower. And that sums up today's quick video. I'm still leaning towards a little bit more relief in the market, but only time will tell how far we can really pump. Usually in the midterm years, stocks do get a reasonable correction, and naturally this will roll over into crypto. The real question is, can we squeeze up a little bit higher first, providing some more relief across the crypto market, or are we just immediately going to head lower now? History would suggest that we can squeeze up a little bit, but ultimately I do think that this year, Bitcoin and crypto as a whole will be headed lower, providing some amazing opportunities for the next bull market cycle. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. As always, I have my bluff and leverage trading tutorial right here, and I'll see you in the next video.